To go back to the cross for a moment, when we look at the fourfold aspect of the cross, which you mentioned in the introduction, the four arms that come together at that fulcrum point of the rose represent, again, the physical aspects, okay, of our reality and of our experience. They are the four cardinal directions of the physical world, north, south, east, and west, representing that all are welcome to this knowledge. All may partake of it, none excluded, okay? Everyone from all corners of the world, okay? This is not a secret society as such, as it is often thought of. Just like Freemasonry is not a secret society, they call it a society with secrets, but the knowledge of Freemasonry is open to everyone who wants to acquire it, just as the knowledge of Rosicrucianism is open to everyone who wants to acquire it. It is not held back from people, certainly not in the modern world. Perhaps it was in the past, but not today. So as such, this tradition is becoming de-occulted, or being taken out of its hiding place and being thrust upon the world, because this knowledge is needed now more than it ever has been, because we're at a critical fulcrum point, or a juncture in history that requires this knowledge to be integrated. Otherwise, humanity is going to face extinction. That's how serious the juncture that we're at in human history. So, to go back to the cross for a little bit, the four arms, again, represent the four cardinal directions, and they represent the four aspects of the material world. We saw this when we looked into alchemy, the tradition of alchemy, and this is shared in common in Rosicrucianism as well. It represents the four material elements coming together, okay, being earth, air, water, and fire. We'll get to what they represent in a moment. And with the rose as the fifth element, which is ether or spirit, okay? It is the sacred feminine essence, which is the generative principle of care, coming together at the center, binding all of those other elements, giving them stability, okay? Or you could look at it as that's what the other arms are growing out of, because as the generative principle, care is what dictates the physical experience. So the four arms, aside from the cardinal directions and the four material elements, also represent the four virtues of Rosicrucianism. And these four virtues, as they are taught in this tradition, are faith, hope, love, and patience, being the fourth virtue, something that many of us, including myself, need to work on, okay? And you know, that could be a tough one, because we see the chaos that's taking place in our world, and we want the transformation in consciousness to take place more quickly. Those of us who are awake and paying attention certainly do. Patience is a big virtue that is attempted to be conveyed in this tradition, because it is taught that if we are patient, you know, good, much better things will arise than if we rush to try to do something. Steadfastness is a big component of this tradition, and is taught to its initiates. In other words, willpower, not giving up, but also
Mark,
being the person who steadily moves forward, not rushing things. Okay,
Mark,
yes.
we've been told that the last virtue was charity all these years. Is that not true?
It is the third virtue in the Freemasonic tradition and also in the Christian tradition. In Rosicrucianism, charity is not one of the four main ones. It is emphasized, of course, to be charitable unto one's neighbors, of course. But the four main traditions taught in Rosicrucianism are faith, hope, love, and patience. Faith, hope, and charity being the three traditional Christian traditions, and those taught in Freemasonry as well.
Very interesting.
So, as these four elements come together, okay, to make the foundations of the material plane in which the spirit or the rose is having its experience, we should take a look at how these overlap with some other traditions, namely the Christian and the alchemical tradition. And also, of course, the tradition of tarot. These symbols are also tightly interwoven into. So the four arms could be looked at as the four gospel writers, or the four gospels themselves. And rose could represent the Christ consciousness itself, okay? The awakened Christed consciousness at the center, okay? And the four gospel writers were, in the exoteric Christian tradition, were Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Again, it's all about these four have to be integrated. They have to be brought together and used in harmony with each other, in unison with each other, okay, in a place of balance, all in balance with each other, not any of them neglected, okay? And let's take a look at them individually. Matthew, traditionally, has been associated in the astrological tradition with the angel or the man of the great cross, okay? If anyone is familiar with the tradition of astrology, there is what is known as the Great Cross of the Zodiac, this X cross, or in the other Western traditions, it is known as the Cross of St. Andrew, with the solar cross of the plane of the ecliptic and the solstices and equinoxes being represented by the upright cross, like a plus sign. The Great Cross on the Zodiac is often represented as an X, a large X, or a crossing, okay, of the galactic center, okay? So this is the cross that is represented by the four fixed signs of the Zodiac in the astrological tradition. These are Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, and Scorpio. Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, and Scorpio. These main fixed signs of the Zodiac are all associated with one of the gospel writers and with alchemical, each one being ascribed to a different alchemical element. So Matthew, again, is associated with the angel or the man, okay, of the lion, bull, man, and eagle, okay, and we'll see why that is, those attributes. Aquarius, okay, on the Zodiac is represented as the water bringer or the man, sometimes depicted as an angel. This is the Matthew arm of the cross of the gospel writers. Aquarius is an air sign. As such, this has a correspondence to the alchemical tradition of air, which represents the human intellect, our thought aspect of our consciousness, thought forms, okay? How we can use our mind, our intellect, to comprehend ideas, to comprehend reality. The mark sign of the cross, or arm of the cross, represents Leo, the lion. This is the alchemical element of fire, okay? So in the astrological tradition, it is Leo. In the tarot tradition, it would be the suit of wands. Just like in the tarot tradition, the Matthew arm of the cross would represent swords, okay? So Mark is lion. He is the Leo aspect of the Great Cross, the fixed sign of the Zodiac. This represents fire, or our actions, what we actually do with what we have, with what we know, with our feelings, with how we care, okay? And this is probably the highest of the four physical elements, okay, because it integrates the other three. We have to take in knowledge, and then we have to basically use our care and our resources, but we ultimately must act. We must do something in the physical domain, which is what action is all about, and that's what real wisdom is. It's what we do with what we know. The third arm of the cross and gospel writer connected with the Christ consciousness at the center is the Luke figure, who is represented by the bull or Taurus in the astrological tradition, and in the alchemical tradition, this is a symbol of earth, okay? Earth represents our starting materials, the prima materia of alchemy, okay? It represents what we have, what we're born into the world with, innate qualities, talents, resources, capabilities, okay, that we put to work in the physical world. So we move on to the fourth arm of the cross, and this is the John figure, of the gospel writers. This is represented in the astrological tradition by Scorpio, which has traditionally been represented by an eagle due to the Aquila constellation being in Scorpio. So this is a water sign. Water, alchemically, in the alchemical tradition, has been used to correspond to our emotional qualities, our feelings. Okay? So that's the sacred feminine aspect, and that's attributed to water, just as the goddess has always been attributed to water, the moon, and the sea. So that's the feminine part, the aspect that represents care. The goal of the initiate is to unite these four aspects of themselves. These are all aspects of the self. It's our intellect, it's our emotions, it's our resources, innate talents, capabilities, etc., and our actions, okay? And they're to be united in harmony with natural law under higher consciousness, which is what the rose represents, with true care, with the generative principle, or in other words, having the knowledge in hand of how natural law operates such that we are going to willfully co-create with that force and as such create order and not create chaos and self-inflicted suffering. Now, that's the basic symbolism of the main symbol of the Rose Cross. You'll notice that 4 is an essential element, okay, is an essential number in this, and also that 5th element being at the center, okay? That 5th element, the quintessence, the spirit, the sacred feminine, true care. That's what that rose represents. You'll often see each arm, the end of each arm of the cross, depicted as sort of like a 3-leaf clover with 3 petals at the end of each arm. This number 3 is also very important in Rosicrucianism because we recognize the triune nature of the self as well, namely our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. Again, resources, namely in the physical world, aren't part of that traditional triune nature. Thought, emotion, and action is what the aspects of consciousness are actually entail. But we need to employ what we have at our disposal in the physical domain as well. That could be, money that we might have, or situations in life that we might be privy to, okay? Or again, as I've said, our capabilities. I might be a good communicator. Someone might be a good teacher. Someone might be a good artist. Someone might be musically gifted. These are all things that need to be brought to bear to perform the great work of helping to elevate other people to a greater understanding that is greater than themselves, that is the understanding of how this universe actually operates and how we should willfully choose to operate within it, again, to better our experience, to live in harmony with natural law and not create self-inflicted suffering for others or for ourselves, okay? For not only for ourselves, but for everyone else in the world as well. It's a shared experience that we're all collectively co-creating. So we could take a look at some of the orders of this tradition, but I don't want to spend too much time on that. I want to get to the allegory. I want to get to who Christian Rosenkreutz was, his story, the allegory that is put forward in some of the Rosicrucian manifesto documents that you mentioned. We'll look at Fama Fraternitatis, which is the discovery of the fraternity. We'll look at the Confessio Fraternitatis, or the creed of the fraternity. We'll take a look at the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz. We'll look at these briefly and just try to help people to understand what these allegories are all about. And hopefully that will encourage them to read them on their own and look deeper into them for the hidden symbolism, the hidden allegories that are contained therein. I also want to look at 2 of the major and most influential Rosicrucian teachers of modern times, and by modern times I mean the past couple hundred years, and look at some of their work, and that is Max Heindel and Rudolf Steiner, because I think their work is probably it is at the forefront of the tradition, again, in modern times.